Well, hello there. Instant reaction to the Premier League games that have just finished here at ESPN FC. Mark Donaldson alongside Janusz Michallik. Plenty talking points today. We're going to start in the West Midlands. Wolverhampton Wanderers 1, Chelsea 0, Janusz, and Frank Lampard back. Not a good start for him. Is it too disrespectful to Wolves to say that Chelsea clearly had one eye on Real Madrid in midweek? Because Wolves played some good stuff.
Yeah, look, Chelsea. Yeah, you can have one eye on Real Madrid. However unrealistic that may be, but in order to get there with some sort of confidence, you have to do the job here in the Premier League because it's becoming embarrassing right now. Not just with the managers, not with all the money spent, but just now Frank Lampard coming in. However you feel about it, I'm sure I'll talk about it a little bit later. But yeah, you'd like to get a result. You'd like to get a win, at the very least get a point, although that would have been disappointing. So yeah, I'm not buying that because I don't think that Chelsea have any chance with Real Madrid over the two legs, as most people probably don't. So another massively disappointing result for Chelsea.
It's a super goal to give Wolves the victory. They huffed and puffed. Chilwell rested probably with the Champions League in midweek, came off the bench, ended up getting booked as well. But it's the same old story here. It's you need a striker. You don't have a proper striker. You can't score goals. That's 11 defeats in the Premier League this season, just 10 wins. It's a negative goal difference now of -2. They might have loads of money, but are Chelsea just another Premier League team right now that are in mid-table?
They absolutely are. Just look at the table. Wolves are fighting relegation. They still do with that win. They're behind Chelsea. Yes, there's a big difference, I suppose, 8 points in there, but they're right next to each other in the table. This is a Chelsea team that obviously recognizes that big goals are gone. That's what happens. We've seen that with Arsenal over the last few years. We've seen it with Manchester United. We're seeing it with Liverpool as we speak. These teams are built to fight for the big trophies. Once they're gone, the season's gone, and that's the way they're playing. How would you differentiate this Chelsea football team just looking at them week in and week out from any other team that it's in the bottom half? There's really no difference whatsoever. You can't even say wow 3 or 4 or 5 times during the game or games that we've seen as of late. So it is a massive reset. It will be massive reset, a big risk in terms of getting Frank Lampard back here. I can understand why from the standpoint that Frank Lampard knows the club, but we've seen zero from Frank Lampard in terms of his development as a manager to think that he's going to turn that around. By the way, this loss, I'm not putting this on him. He's been back for 2 or 3 days, but there's absolutely zero difference with Frank Lampard there or not.
Yeah, one win in his last 13 games managed in the Premier League. That was back in October for Everton for Frank Lampard. I think you're spot on now. This isn't about Frank Lampard. Certainly right now, this is a problem that goes bigger than that. This is a problem that goes to the very top. You can have all the money in the world. It doesn't make you smart in how you spend it. Now, we don't know who the players were identified by, if Graham Potter had any say in them whatsoever, but it was clear they needed a striker. If you're going to get rid of a manager, like they did with Graham Potter, surely you've got a plan in place for when that happens. Now, if you're telling me that Frank Lampard was their choice on an interim basis, I'm not sure I'd believe you as far as that's concerned. So Todd Boehly and the advisors at Chelsea Football Club right now, that's where the buck has to stop, because this is a club that could be something and probably will be something if they get their house in order. But right now, anything that they've done wrong, they couldn't have done any more wrong, I don't think, the way that they've started since taking over.
Well, you'd like to think that, there's a little bit of a plan in terms of the next manager, although I think Frank Lampard coming in would tell you quietly that he felt that if he does well, he may be it, because that's what they, regardless of what's said out there, he's interim. But if I'm Frank Lampard, I'm thinking, okay, before this game, I want to see a team that shows confidence, fighting spirit ahead of the game against Real Madrid. Say they get the 3 points here against Wolves and show well against Real Madrid, even if they don't go through and maybe win another game or 2 or 3. And certainly you have to think about Frank Lampard and say to yourself, well, maybe we got to keep him. That's how Frank Lampard was thinking. Well, at least that's how I would be thinking. Because it's a big name, big legend, maybe not a big manager, but he certainly doesn't want to be just plugging holes. This was a big risk because, if he doesn't do well here, I don't think Frank Lampard gets another Premier League job. I mean, who would hire him? I just can't imagine in the near future that somebody would. So obviously, it's on Todd Bowley. This is going to be one of the biggest appointments. Maybe for the next 5, 6, or 7 years for Chelsea when it comes to this massive squad. A lot of young players. Some players obviously are not going to be here next year. So we will see if, in fact, as we speak, they're looking at some big names.
They can look all they want, but how restrictive is it for Chelsea when they don't qualify for Europe because they're playing in the Premier League right now? They're mid-table. They're 7 or 8 points behind a Conference League spot. So the chances of them qualifying for Europe next season are pretty slim. So you've got a pool of managers that you think, oh, that might work. Unless you're prepared to pay them absolute fortunes to come and not manage in Europe, are you restricted in what talent is available for you to go and get as your next manager?
No, you're not. It's been proven, right? I mean, look at Arsenal, look at Manchester United. Those are massive clubs with massive money, and managers, prospective managers, know that at the very least, when they get there and they get the money, they can rebuild the squad, right? There are many managers there. You go to certain places, and it's not going to happen. Just listen to Antonio Conte and Spurs. So I don't buy into it because Chelsea are Chelsea, and as we've seen from the spend, this is going to continue. There's going to be probably even a bigger ego to make sure that they succeed from Todd Bowley. But those are massive clubs. If it means that for one season you're not in the Champions League, so be it. But there's going to be plenty of managers interested.
Especially with so many job opportunities potentially available in the summer. What can Chelsea do to differentiate themselves with no European competition from a team that might be in the Champions League if that team can offer the same money that Chelsea could offer?
Yeah. Thinking about all the names, I mean, there's a lot of names, but I don't know if there's that many opportunities around really with the massive clubs. But A, as I've said, it's money, and B, it's Premier League, by far the best in the world when it comes to exposure and everything else. And these managers want to be out there. So I don't see any reason for that. Now, some managers may take an easier route if PSG opens, like massive clubs, but by that, if I were a top manager, I look at Chelsea as one of the biggest clubs in the world, and I take it.
Okay, let's move on. But before we get to other games, I want to word about Wolves and Lopetegui. But like Unai Emery at Villa, come in, found his feet. That's a good win for Wolves. And this is about just trying to finish as high up the table as possible this season, trying to get rid of the potential relegation tag as early as possible and build for next season. What have you made of the job that Lopetegui's done at Molineux since he came in?
Well, he's done a pretty good job in a league that's very difficult this season. But maybe in the years past, with the sort of record, the way he came in and a couple good results early on, he would have been out of sight already. Because usually at this stage, for the most part, right, you win 2 or 3 games and you save. Unfortunately for everybody involved, and we see this with just about every team, even a win or two doesn't make that much of a difference. I look at West Ham today; they get a win after getting hammered by Newcastle, and yet they've moved up. But if you look at points differences, it's crazy. Bournemouth with another result as well. So look, Lopetegui, I think, steadied the ship. I think Wolves are Wolves. Again, it's one of those 1-0 wins that they sort of been known for a while right now. But, he's an organized manager that has managed in the biggest leagues in the world with the biggest teams in the world already. So that experience is coming through right now. And, they've had their issues as well. Introducing some players, that takes time as well. But so far, so good. But by no means, where are they, Mark? 12th, I think, right? The Chelsea are 11th. And I mean, they're 3-4 points away from relegation. So it seems like he's doing a good job. But when you look at the table, it seems mediocre.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.